Hello, welcome. Thank you for coming to the United University Bookstore for today's event. We have the privilege of welcoming Lisha Song with her new book, Love What Hurts, a guide for healing emotional wounds and following your intuition. Lisha has a master's degree in counseling psychology and is a licensed mental health counselor living and working in Tacoma, Washington. She's been helping people recover from trauma and complex PTSD for over 20 years. Lisha also facilitates classes and workshops based on the exercises and skills from her book. In her free time, Lisha enjoys spending time in nature, hiking, hugging a tree, falling off her paddleboard, cycling, and camping. During the winter, you'll find her indoors drinking her favorite latte, wearing her favorite lounge pants, and reading an uplifting book or watching stand-up comedy. Please help me to welcome Lisha Song.
Thank you for that introduction, and thank you for being here today. I appreciate it. So I want to talk to you first about why I decided to write this book 4 or 5 years ago. It's because on my own healing journey, I was looking for, I'm a lover of self-help books, and I was looking for a book that combined both the wisdom and the practices of healing from a psychological perspective, but also from the power of the human spirit's perspective, because the human spirit is very powerful when it comes to healing. And in my belief, the human spirit is infused with something even beyond and bigger than humanity itself. You can call it God, Allah, Buddhism, Taoism, higher self, the universe, whatever you want to call it. But I believe that is what infuses the human spirit. And the human spirit combined with sound psychological, emotional practices and wisdom is what makes healing possible and comprehensive and robust. So that's why I wrote this book. And what I'm going to do today is read an excerpt from the book. And then if you have any questions about what I read, I'm happy to answer those. And then I'm going to walk you through one of the main exercises from this book. And then again, if there's any questions or feedback about that, I'm happy to take that. All right, so this is on page 1. Following intuition and the wisdom of the body, a personal story. Fertility specialists, tests, and invasive procedures. After 12 months of tracking my ovulation cycle, resulting in negative pregnancy tests month after month, my gynecologist said it was time for further testing since I was in my 30s and not able to get pregnant. I was 32 years old at the time. If you had tried conceiving for a year without any success and were over the age of 30, you were referred to a fertility specialist. It felt like my body had betrayed me. My cycle had been regular without any issue since I was 11, and all I wanted was to experience pregnancy and grow a baby inside me. Was that too much to ask of my reproductive organs? The fertility appointments and tests were not covered by our insurance provider, so it wasn't an option for us. I wasn't sure what to do next until one night I had a dream. I was in a hospital room where my father lay dying. I had brought a letter for him. It was a letter of forgiveness and love. Not the love of a daughter to her father, but the love of one soul to another who was suffering in their human form. In the dream, I knew I was well loved by my chosen tribe and understood my father to be isolated, alone, and unloved by the ones he had abused and or neglected. So dream me knew I could afford to extend a little compassion to him as he lay there dying. In the moment, our souls were equally loved. And let me put a pin in that for a moment to disclose to you that when I was a child, my father sexually abused me. By the time I was trying to get pregnant, I hadn't seen or spoken to him in 10 years. I had done years of therapy to be emotionally free of my childhood abuse and thought I was done from healing from it. Apparently, I was not done. When I awoke from that dream, I knew there was a correlation between my father, my abused childhood, and my inability to get pregnant. I knew I had to see him. It wasn't logical, but my intuition just knew, and my body felt calm with this idea. Of course, this didn't sit too well with my tribe. Why do you need to see him? Why do you want to open up that can of worms? Why would you create this kind of stress for yourself? Indeed, why would I? Our tribe of friends and loved ones want the best for us and don't want to see us in pain. But sometimes the painful path is the one we have to take in order to be fully free. And when you're desperate for answers or healing, you'll do just about anything to get it. I wanted to have a baby, and I knew on some intuitive level that I had to take this path and see my father. At this point, my father was in his late 70s, living in a rehabilitative group home of sorts. I don't know if it was for financial reasons, medical, or both. He suffered from complications of type 2 diabetes, emphysema, and poverty. Seeing him in this state was surreal. I didn't see him as the 78-year-old wheelchaired man his body was clearly exhibiting. I saw him as a throwaway boy during the Great Depression of the 1930s. When my father was 9, his father died, and his mother abandoned him to a boys' orphanage because she couldn't afford to care for him and his older sister. It was during this time, in the boy's home, that he was sexually and physically abused. He ran away at 16 and joined the Navy. He didn't recognize me at first. I'm not sure he would have recognized me at all had my mother not been with me on this visit. He recognized her immediately. Once he realized who I was, he was elated to see us both. At the time, I wondered why I was there. He was lost in his abandoned childhood, spewing resentment for his mother. He was lost in the unanswered questions around my brother's severe autism and why the government didn't help us. The government owes us, he'd say. He said that a lot during my childhood. Clearly, he was still in his victim state of mind. I felt sorry for him. He was stuck in his past. I was not stuck in mine. That was an aha moment for sure. I had done so much work to resolve and neutralize the effects of his abuse on my life. Years of therapy, years of boundaries. All good, all very much worth the emotional and mental agony. After about 20 minutes, Mom and I got up to leave. With his walker, he walked us to the door. Mom gave him a hug. I did not. As I was unlocking my car door, he called out to me. With a very lucid, adult-like tone, he shouted, "Lisha, I'm sorry for everything." And just like Han Solo said to Princess Leia, I replied with, "I know." Facetious? Yes, it was. As much as that acknowledgement should have been a moment of instant forgiveness, it wasn't. Because he had apologized before, quite half-heartedly. You can tell when someone is sincere in an apology or when it's just the beginning of a slew of excuses for their bad behavior. His apologies always fell under the latter category. On the drive home, I still questioned why I made that visit. What was the point of all that? A few days later, I lay on Donna's massage table. When I had told my female colleagues at work about my challenges with getting pregnant, they told me about this craniosacral therapist in town who gets all the girls pregnant. I didn't hesitate and scheduled an appointment with Donna. When I walked into Donna's home practice, I didn't tell her my story of sexual abuse, the recent dream I had, or the visit I made to see my father. I simply told her I was having trouble getting pregnant. She didn't ask for any more information. I got up onto her massage table and she started hovering her hands around my body without touching it at first. I understand now that she was using her senses to read my body's energy like a Reiki practitioner does. "Oh yeah, your left ovary seems blocked," she said nonchalantly. She then placed her hands at my tailbone and at the base of my head and started to gently rock those areas. The theory behind craniosacral therapy is that the stresses and strains of life cause tightening and distortion in the craniosacral system, membranes and cerebral spinal fluid that surround and protect the brain and spinal cord, and lead to restrictions. With a gentle hand pressure and rocking, you can loosen this energy clog and as a result, experience relief where there was pain. I had my doubts of this working for me, but I was willing to try anything. After some time on her table, tears started to stream down my face, strange and cathartic. With my eyes closed, I could see my reproductive organs, and they were talking to me. "It's okay now, Lisha. We are safe. You are safe, and you can let go." In that moment, I trusted what my body was telling me and knew nothing bad would happen upon releasing that old traumatic energy. It no longer served me, and so I did. I let it go and let God. I cried the trauma out of me. I released it. 2 weeks later, I was pregnant. So 20 years ago, when that happened, I had no idea it would be part of a book. But does anybody have any questions about my story? Yes.
So this is true? This happened?
This is my story. Yeah.
This happened to
20.
20?
Yeah. But my childhood happened even further back, more like 50 years ago. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? All right. So now the main exercise I have in the book is called the clearing exercise, and this is a way for getting in touch and acknowledging and also befriending those wounded parts of us, the shameful parts, the rageful parts, the guilt-ridden parts, the sad, grieving parts of us. Those are, humans, we tend to put those in its own Pandora's box and, shut it away because it's too painful to look at. But when we can look at those parts, acknowledge them, and befriend them, it just becomes a lot easier to heal and a lot easier to feel integrated and embodied. So you have a pad of paper and pen. But you can just set that aside for now. You don't need to write anything down for right now. And what I'd like to do is, if it's okay with you, invite you to close your eyes. And let's start off with 5 intentional breaths where you're slowing down each exhale to 6 seconds. Out of the exhale engages the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the grounding side of the nervous system. So go ahead and start your breaths. One more time. Keeping your eyes closed, I want you to remember a trigger you may have experienced recently, an overreaction of sorts in the last week in the last month, in the last year. Nothing super traumatic, just a trigger where you just noticed you overreacted or you couldn't quite shake it off. And now I invite you to scan your body from head to toe, locating where that trigger might be living in your body. And you'll notice it because you'll either feel tension or even pain, maybe queasy. So just notice where you feel that trigger in your body. And for right now, just acknowledge that it's there. Almost like you're saying hello to it. Doesn't mean you have to like it. You don't have to be happy about that it's there. You're just acknowledging its presence. And as you acknowledge its presence, intentionally breathe into that discomfort or pain. And now take notice if anything has changed about the sensation in your body. If that trigger has gotten, if it's changed at all, if it's gotten more intense, or if it's starting to lighten up already, just notice. Or if it's staying the same, you're just noticing. And now notice what emotions might be behind the sensation of this trigger. And just spend a few moments now intentionally breathing in to those emotions. Emotions can be guilt, anger, rage, sadness, overwhelm, frustration, shame, embarrassment. Intentionally breathe into those emotions. And now notice if anything has changed or shifted with that part of your body, with the emotions, with the sensations. Just notice that maybe nothing shifted. Maybe it feels lighter or calmer. Maybe it feels stronger, more intense. Just take notice. With as much neutrality and very little, if not zero, judgment. And now visualize your actual physical heart. Notice how it's pumping blood and oxygen through your arteries, into all your organs, everywhere in your body as it's supposed to. It's doing that without thought. It's automatic. But I invite you to focus on how it's sending this energy to that wounded area in your body, to where the trigger lives. And do this for several moments. And And now add in some intentional breathing. And add in the word love. Love. It's not attached to anybody or anything. Just the word love as you visualize your heart sending that life force, supportive, loving energy to your trigger.
And if you are signed up with us for get notices, special Excellent.
And now notice if anything has shifted with your emotions, with the physical sensations, or even thoughts or beliefs. Just take notice. And now let's get a little curious. I wonder if there's a memory or a negative belief about yourself associated with this trigger. And how young or old does this part of you feel? Just notice. And now visualize the younger part of you, even if it was just a week ago, you, or yesterday's you. Just notice that part of you holding on to that trigger, that pain. And see your younger part with eyes of compassion. And what do you notice now? Imagine the energy from your heart flowing to the heart of this younger version of you, and then back to your heart like an infinity 8. And what do you notice now?
Warn you're going to get SOT and ACT.
I invite you now to offer this younger part of you an intention of attentiveness, an intention of protection and nurturing, or at least an intention to learn how, if you feel like you don't know how. And what do you notice now when you do those things? And now I ask you, is there a positive statement, even if you don't believe the statement 100%, that goes with this lighter feeling? The statement can be short and simple, like, I am safe. I have choices now. I will be okay. I am lovable. I am enough. And I want you to add a little bit of tapping. So if you continue with your eyes closed and just tap on your legs, alternating from one leg to the other, while you're honing in on that positive statement at the same time. And this helps the entire brain access what we're doing and engage in what we're doing, the tapping. You can pause your tapping and take another intentional breath in with that slow exhale release. And take notice of how everything feels right now. Your body, your emotions. And whenever you're ready, slowly open your eyes and come back. And just take a few moments to write down on your little tablet what you noticed in that exercise from the beginning to the end. Short little notes. Would anyone like to share what they experienced or have any feedback or questions? I'm not going to force you.
Well, it brought to focus where my tension points are again. And with breathing, how it helps relax and resolve them. Reminding what it is that it is a trigger for those tension points. And I always acknowledge it and then just visualize letting it go.
Excellent. That's great. And how do you find it? Is it easy for you to let it go when you can acknowledge? And
Usually,
okay.
I've been doing yoga
Oh, beautiful. That's great.
for years.
Mm-hmm. Well, yoga started off as a spiritual practice, and a lot of people have a cathartic experience with yoga if there's a lot of, stored up woundedness or trauma in the body.
Yes. And then I moved on to Tai Chi.
Oh, yeah, excellent.
I find that the movement combined with the breath
Yes.
Works better for me.
Nice. So you're very in tune with your body.
Yet it still surprises me.
Yeah, because it keeps changing. Thank you for sharing. Anybody else want to share?
I could share. I think it throughout this exercise made me realize someone else's trigger doesn't need to be also mine.
Yes.
Reacting how I react. I don't need to be reactive. I can choose how I react to
Right.
someone else's whatever it is.
Right. Which is,
I don't
so
have to
easy
mirror
to do.
it. Yeah.
With the closest to us, it's so easy to get into their reaction. But if you practice that, and then as you're grounded, you can actually be more helpful to the other person too. So It's really hard for parents to exercise this as their kids are reacting to something. It's easy to swim in that pool with them. So cool. Anybody else want to share? Okay. Any questions about the exercise or me or the book or the writing process?
In your book, you're not an advocate of visualization, not visualization, but affirmations.
Not until the wounds are addressed. Because what happens is people try to bypass their unaddressed wounding with, I am lovable, I am enough, but they've never addressed where the opposite of those beliefs even came from,
Mm-hmm.
right? So when we bypass the wound, the positive affirmations will never work, and then it's just one more thing for someone to get on themselves about, to further believe that they're permanently damaged. So yeah, you have to address the wounding. Like, why do you not believe this about yourself already? When did that start? Once you address that, then bring in the positive affirmations. Absolutely, but in that order. So yeah. Any other questions? All right, that concludes our talk.
Well, thank you.
Yes, thank you for being here.